Hello, welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help with James Lott Jr. Who am I? I'm James Lott Jr. and I have ideas. And I'm here to help. But this person's here to help too because she is actually a creative and AI specialist. She's out there doing tech stuff in the AI space and AI stuff in the tech space. She's doing both. And we're becoming fast friends. And I thought I didn't want to bring her on because I want to try and exercise with her and I want her to explain some stuff to you out there that's going on. That's the truth, and that's what's going on. Help me welcome Caroline Holden. Hello, girl.
Hi. Hi, James. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to do this. You asked me to do something. I did my
Mhm.
homework. I did my something. And
Mhm.
so, folks, this is part of the exercise. We're going to start this off. I
Okay.
went to ChatGPT and asked who she was.
Ooh, yes. We said we were
So
gonna do this.
yeah, so I did it. So I did it. It's a little. It's a
And
paragraph
you
and a half.
made sure to include my middle name, right?
Yes, I did, and this is what it came up with. And so this is an exercise, folks. So this is directly related to our talk. She's going to dissect into the whole thing. So here
Okay.
we go, kids. So I said, can you tell me about Caroline Swift
Hmm.
Holden in Minnesota? Caroline Swift Holden lives in Minnesota,
Hmm.
where she works in the fast-moving world of artificial intelligence.
Ooh.
In her early 30s, just tell me all your business. In your early 30s, Caroline is sharp, curious, and a little rebellious. I see that.
Gasp.
I see it. I totally see what she sounds like. Oh yeah, I see that. Someone who's just as comfortable in a sleek corporate meeting as she is coding late into the night in a cozy coffee shop.
Coding? Okay. Sure, chat. Sure.
It's next set. Is the next one. She grew up in a smaller town outside of Minneapolis.
No.
So we talked about that. The daughter of a librarian,
No.
no, and a mechanical engineer.
No.
So it says your middle name Swift came from her grandmother.
Almost,
Okay,
but not quite. Not quite.
who always said Caroline would move fast and think faster.
No.
And she did. That you said you won state science fairs. Okay.
It made up a lot of things. This is
No,
funny.
yes. Graduating early. So,
Okay,
and then,
I see what happened here. So it just made things up. I mean maybe
oh,
there's some things that are in there that are real, but I think if you ask it to like search the internet for what you know about
no, no,
Carolyn.
no, 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 we'll get to that in 7 minutes. Just talk. I'm going to read this first, and we're going to get into that whole. I
Okay,
want to
okay,
get
okay, 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 okay.
this is kind of fun. So that's why I want to read it. It's hilarious. Then launching yourself into the tech world. Caroline specializes in ethical AI development.
Yeah, sure.
All right. She's deeply passionate about making sure the future of AI is transparent, fair, and accessible.
Yeah, pretty much.
She often speaks at local universities.
I'm giving my first talk at a university on Monday, so sure.
And I love your reaction. I love your reaction. Volunteer, says back to this coding thing. Volunteers teach coding workshops to girls.
Nope, I do not teach coding workshops. I don't know how to code.
But says occasionally writes thoughts about the human side of technology.
I do that a lot.
Yeah, you do yeah, that. You do right. In her personal, that's why that's kind of funny. In her personal life, this is tell her personal
Ooh,
life.
my personal life. What's going on in my personal life in this alter ego version of me?
Well, you have a dry sense of humor, which you do. I've noticed
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Says you love kayaking on the lakes.
I like kayaking. I don't kayak often. That's not like a regular thing. I think more accurate would be sailing. I'm a
Oh,
bigger
I
sailor than
sailing
I'm a
too. Oh, yeah,
kayaker. It has sailing too?
I do. I learned how to sail when I was 13 years old in the Santa Barbara.
Oh,
I'm a big boat. I'm a big boat person. Big boat
yeah,
person.
yeah,
It has a soft spot for old vinyl records. Okay.
yeah. I wish I
Uh,
did. That would make me so much cooler.
yes. The last thing it says is she's currently working on a project that combines AI and storytelling.
Kinda.
Right.
Eh.
Trying to build an engine that helps people create interactive narratives.
No. Unless you
So,
disagree. I don't know.
so I read it as is because now I want you to break it down because folks are like AI is just too smart. Clearly, it isn't. But there's a reason why you have to prompt it. So I want you to talk about that because people are like, "What do you mean it can work for you?" I did
Yeah.
this
Okay.
basic. Tell me about who she is, but how could have I made this better and more
Yeah.
accurate?
Okay. So what was the prompt that you made again? What was
I
it?
said, "Tell me about Caroline Swift Holden who lives in Minnesota." That's all I wrote
Gotcha. Okay.
on purpose.
And it got the AI stuff, which is interesting. So it
Yeah,
must have known something about me. Um, But the fact that it got
kayaking.
so many, and it made up stuff, like, and I get that, like, it probably was like, oh, I want to know more about Carolyn's childhood, and like, that's not on the internet, so like, it makes sense that it would be confused about that. So I'm a woman of mystery. Nobody knows anything, especially not AI. But yeah, I think the big thing was sometimes I will ask. I've done this before for my podcast when I'm trying to write a summary or like a description of a guest. I will ask ChatGPT, "Oh, can you tell me about this person?" But usually I know enough where I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is made up." But sometimes if I ask, "Oh, what can you tell me about?" So in this case, Carolyn Swift Holden, um, it just kind of like it might say something that it knows, or it'll make something up. But if you say, can you search online and tell me what you find about Carolyn Swift Holden? That would have given you a lot more.
Okay,
Because
right
it's
there.
just, yeah.
So we're gonna do this. I'm gonna do the exact prompt. As I went, I've never done this before on a show. I love doing this. I'm like, that's why I was so excited for you to be on the show. So
Yeah.
what?
And also, I noticed, so I don't know how much chat knows about me being in Minnesota. It's possible it does, but I would actually just cut that out because I wonder, because a lot of the things that it put in there were like very Minnesota coded things, right? Like loves to go kayaking on the lakes. That's like a very Minnesota activity. And then like there were a few others in there, like the vinyl records. Like people are really into vinyl here. So, like, I think there were some things where it was like, oh, that's a stereotypical Minnesota thing. So just cut that out. Just ask
Tell
it, like, tell me what you search the internet, tell me what you find about Carolyn Swift Holden.
So, folks, we're doing this live, well, live for us right now. Search the internet. See, that's why I'm learning stuff from her. I did that on
Yeah.
purpose, guys. Doing this, search the internet and tell me. So, literally, what you're saying is type how you talk, almost like you would say it to people, right? On
Oh
chat.
yeah.
Tell me about. Because people think it's some magical, like some like weird. I'm like, no, it's like you just tell it directly what you want, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite things that I've been hearing from big tech CEOs is that they should, a lot of big tech CEOs are saying, oh, don't major in computer science, you should major in English instead. Because just
Good.
being an excellent communicator is much more important. And it works with natural language, right? Like it wants to hear how normal people speak, not like a Google search or SEO where you're trying to be so particular.
So like, this is a paragraph. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but read the paragraph. This
Yeah.
is one. Carolyn Swift Holden is a multifaceted creative technologist, entrepreneur, and content creator with a diverse background spanning startups, venture capital, AI, comedy, and filmmaking.
There
Over
we
the
go.
years, she has built products, strategies, and content to help startups and VC scales. They mention your career highlights, comedy and filmmaking, online presence where you are at Substack, YouTube, social media. This is way more you. I love that.
Yeah,
But
that
that,
is all accurate. All that I've heard so far. That's
yes,
all real.
no, but that's a lot of us who don't know how to use this.
Yeah.
Well, that's like, what if they just stopped where I stopped? You're like, well, that doesn't sound like her at all. I know that's not her at all. I'm screwed. Where you just a valuable lesson, you guys out there. They call it prompts, I guess, right? They call it prompts.
Yeah, AI prompting or whatever. Yeah, prompt, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So actually, that's even I know that because I talked to her off camera. Even I knew I was like, oh yeah, that is her. We talked about that, and that. So it's much more accurate. So it's so
Yeah.
like it wants to. It doesn't want to be so formal. It wants to be informal. Is that what we're thinking? Is how we look at it that way?
Yeah, I mean, the more important thing is to be direct, right? Like if you're ever prompting an AI like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever it is that you're using, you want to, there's definitely strategies that you can use, but just being very direct and clear is the most important thing. And then also sometimes something that will help is if you say exactly how you want it to approach things or what kind of a person you want it to be. So you can tell ChatGPT, you are an AI expert and you know everything about AI. Can you break down what AI prompting is to me like I'm a 5-year-old? And then it will break it down at like much easier to understand level, but it also going in there with the context of it being like, I'm an AI expert versus tell me what AI is, right? Or how to do AI prompting.
You said when we were talking off camera, a week ago, talking about this, you said something that I think is very fascinating. I want to get into a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, AI, just like it's because you work and have worked in the tech field,
Yeah.
and they're very much about information, blah blah. But there's a whole other side to it the rest of us are looking at as, and I feel like you help bridge the gap. Can you talk about that a little? Just kind of like how they're viewing AI a certain way, we're viewing AI a certain way, and you're like, here it is,
Yeah,
here it is.
absolutely.
So
So
just talk about
So I like to describe myself, as ChatGPT said, as a creative technologist. And that's because I started my career in the arts and then pivoted into tech and startups later. So I was a film major in college. I got my first job in advertising at McCann, where I worked for some big mega brands there. And then I quit to go be a comedian. And so I was writing, performing, making web series, things like that. And I placed in various national competitions and all that jazz, right? And so growing up, I was a highly creative person working in the arts. I spent some time in LA. I was in New York for a long time, all that jazz, right? And I ended up in tech by accident. I turned 26 tragically and had to get health insurance. I was like, what am I going to do? And I got a job at a venture capital firm, so a financial firm that invests in startups of all places. And I fell in love with entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of that has to do with people who are making art and people who are building startups are just very similar kinds of people. And there's more money in it, so that was exciting. But what
it.
I have been noticing is there are at least two, if not more, completely different conversations when it comes to AI. So, in a lot of the tech space, not all of the tech space, but in a lot of the tech space and people who work in AI, they are so excited about AI. They're talking about all the ways it's going to change the world for the better and how you can do this and this and that, and all of these really incredible things like being able to improve research in medical spaces, right? Or in scientific research, or being able to get rid of a lot of administrative headaches that people don't want to deal with, that kind of stuff, right? And then, of course, they're excited that they are able to create images or maybe like a video or text for the very first time, as these are not necessarily the most, creative individuals. But then on the creative side, what's really interesting to me is the conversation is completely different. It's very, very negative, and I completely understand and relate why. Again, because I've been in both of these worlds, right? So on the creative side, we have a lot of people who are really scared that AI is going to take their jobs. We have a lot of people who are extremely concerned about the energy impacts that AI has on our world, which makes a lot of sense. And then there is the whole copyright aspect of it all that, yes, our data was stolen. It's true. That happened. And they view using any AI tool as maybe not everybody, but there seems to be a movement of if you use an AI tool, you are an unethical person. And so I'm looking at this situation and I'm kind of like, wow, okay, we've got two completely different conversations. And with social media, we're in our little bubbles, right? People are not seeing eye to eye. So the tech people are so confused about why creative individuals are so angry. They don't get it. They're like, don't you see that we're able to create personalized medicine? Don't you see that we're able to make major impacts on fixing the climate crisis? Don't you see that we're going to be able to do all of these really cool, incredible things? And then on the creative side, people are seeing lots of job loss, right? And from Yeah, so I think that those are kind of like the spaces that I have been trying to build bridges for because at the end of the day, AI is just software. Like it's so funny to me because depending on who I'm talking to, I either will say that, AI is the most amazing thing that's ever happened, or it's really not that big of a deal, guys. It's really not that big of a deal.
You're right.
So,
It's both those things. Everything you just said. You said it perfectly because we are. I'm in two different spaces too, just from being an interviewer, but I'm also a creative. I was marching 2 years ago out there, and we
yeah.
couldn't work in certain spaces. But then also, I'm reporting on it, and then I'm like, and my colleagues are using it
Yeah.
for help get stuff. And so it's like I know what you mean. Like I'm like I call us like the sandwich generation. Like we're somewhere in between. Like we're like sandwich between we're scared and oh my goodness to
Yeah.
like you said, don't be scared. It's one of the
Yeah.
others like don't be scared, scared, don't be scared, scared. But
I know.
I like you said it's like it's just software. So how
Yeah.
do so I'm like but some folks think it really isn't just software. They're scared. They really are scared. So what do you say?
Yeah.
What more do you say to them? The ones who are
Yeah.
because you helped me last time off the phone. We were on the phone.
Yeah.
How do you talk to people about that? Creative,
Yeah.
especially.
Well, it depends on like what people are focused on. And so I think the first thing first is explaining a little bit more about how the software works. I don't know if I'm gonna dig into that too much today, maybe if we have time. But let's address kind of like the biggest concerns that we're seeing on the creative space. So talking about AI taking jobs. I think that's the first one. I think that's probably the biggest one that is really scaring people, especially because a lot of the work that is in AI that's getting the most publicity is on the creative side, right? Like people were astounded that Sora could make video. People were astounded that ChatGPT can make images or write or do all of these things. And that, causes a lot of fear for people. But I think there's a few different things going on here, right? Like when it comes to AI taking jobs, and especially from a Hollywood perspective, which is the part of the industry that I know best, we've been seeing the collapse of Hollywood for the last 10 to 20 years. All right. It's been slow moving. It's been dying for a long time. Sales have been going down, and the industry has tried to adapt by making the same superhero movies over and over and over and over again. And it's been incredibly difficult for studios to exist. And so everyone's trying to buy each other out, all of this kind of stuff, right? And so for me, what I see as the bigger threat to creatives in particular losing jobs is not actually AI, but it's the executives, right? It's we've got these big companies that are trying to pay a ton of people and they can't afford it anymore because they are not making the same returns that they used to. It's not keeping up with inflation, all that stuff. But what I think creatives are not seeing that they need to realize like now is that with these tools, if you want to use them or not, right? It is now easier to build your own business. It is now easier to make your own films. It is now easier to make your own music and to use all of these incredible tools to not have to deal with these assholes anymore, right? You don't have to work at Pixar to make an Oscar award winning animated film. You
No.
do not have to work for Warner Brothers. You do not have to do that. You can now grab your five most talented artist friends, right? You can find your favorite writers, your favorite animators, your favorite artists, the people who've always wished you could work with, and you can make your own project. And it might not be able to go into the theaters, though. If Taylor Swift can get around those gatekeepers, I'm sure we can figure out a solution. But you can publish things on social media. People don't seem to recognize that YouTube is bigger than literally any other streamer. My God, guys, the world has changed.
Yes.
And so, like, imagine if we could have not, 2 to 3 really big animated films every year. What if we had 50? Can you,
Right.
like, I think what people don't understand is that AI can coach them on how to build a better business so that they can learn the basics and figure out how to get started before they're able to hire on real business people who can help them really scale things, right? And they don't realize that just because Hollywood and old systems, these old gatekeepers like it, are collapsing, it doesn't mean that your career is over. It means that it's just beginning. All right. This is incredibly exciting stuff. And I have been frankly devastated to see so much content on places like TikTok of like animators sobbing in particular and being like, not necessarily sobbing, but, basically saying that they feel like their life is over because they're not going to be able to live their dreams. And I'm just sitting here like yelling from the rooftops, guys, guys, you don't need to work at Pixar. You can build your own Pixar. This is what's happening right now. And it's so exciting. And I just really want people to hear that in particular.
Well, it's like a while back when I remember when I first started my business, and it's a long time ago. I was on Yahoo Business, but they had software where I could build my own website, and that was a
Yeah.
big deal. That's when it first started. Because before you had to hire somebody to do that for you, it was like they had these 2 minutes. So I feel like this is the same kind of deal. It's like now we just have again more advanced technology where it just
Mhm.
makes like they can do more for you. Like before, what's about virtual assistants and stuff, whatever, when that came out. Somebody
Yeah.
from far away can help you. Well, now you don't necessarily need somebody from far away to help you. Like now you can literally tell AI what you need. And we already have Alexa and Siri. They've been around for a while now
Yeah.
already.
They just weren't very good.
Right. Like, turn the lights off. And they're like, start the oven. No, turn the lights off. Turn the lights off. My
Make
voice.
the lights blue. No.
Right. Right, exactly. They never recognize my voice. Never happens. But the whole point is we've always had these things. Like well, I remember when when CDs came out. I remember when DVDs came out. I remember all that stuff. It's like it was always scary at
Yeah.
first. I liked my Walkman. I want to. I like I remember when iPods came out. It was like 2006, and I was a grown man by then. But I used to have a Discman that I would carry.
Mhm.
I don't think of CDs I'd play on my Discman, my headphones, and I was like, I don't want to like I love my. It goes, James. It's all digital. You just put it in it's just a little thing, and your music's in there. I'm like, my music's in there. I remember being like, just like amazed. So, but
Yeah.
also fighting it. I think our natural tendency is the robots are bad. They're gonna turn on us. It's iRobot.
Mhm.
They're gonna turn on us. But like literally, this is something that's actually could be good, right?
Yeah. And I think, every time that we have some sort of a technological revolution,
Right.
there's always fear. And it's because change is scary. Not knowing what's going to happen is scary, and not knowing what the future is going to look like is scary. But at the same time, when you are operating in a technological revolution or a financial revolution, that also means there's a lot of opportunities, right? So, whenever there is new technology, if you're able to be first, you're able to have really big gains. Like I was thinking earlier about who was it? Like Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. They were some of the first to be using digital cameras and all of that stuff and doing these super, super low budget mumblecore dramas that nobody had made before and that normal studios weren't necessarily funding, but they were able to do that. And now Greta Gerwig just did Barbie and is also like doing Narnia coming up, like these massive big budget things. So I think we need to really reframe how we are looking at this situation when it comes to the job things and recognize this is not the end of the world. This is actually open doors and opening opportunities for more art and more better art to be created. Because frankly, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sick of the gosh darn superhero movies. I would love to have more original work. And I think that this type of technology is going to make it so that we're going to have a creative and artistic revolution. It's not the end of the world, right?
Yeah. But I want to bring this up to you because you're also in this space, and actually in the tech space, the same thing. Competition. I feel like, see now it's going to even the playing field, so to speak,
Yeah.
because I think folks are scared of that also too, in the
Yeah.
creative spaces. Like, well, no, I'm the first. We're the first. Well, I'm the first. I can do it. But now it's like, well, if James Lott Jr. in Inglewood can do it from his home, then and I feel like it just means I don't see competition anyway. I just see everybody's is more the merrier, like you do, more the merrier. But I also think, well, maybe that'll make you think harder on how you do your next project. Maybe it'll make you maybe it'll help you elevate your game too on some level.
Yeah.
Um, I always feel like that's also a part of this too. Is that if everybody can do it?
I know. I think a lot of this, also has to do with how these creative industries have been structured, right? And so I was in comedy, and the expectation was you were going to spend 5 to 10 years working for free. And then maybe if you were lucky, you would have a big break, or you'd have to give up, go home, and do whatever the other, whatever your backup plan was, right? And that was like kind of it. And you weren't really able to build your own business or find other ways to make money. And now we've got people who are absolutely killing it on YouTube who are able to build their own paths. I mean, I need to keep asking around how many people are watching Dropout TV, which is, entirely just creative people bopping around. Like that's not Hollywood. Or maybe some people consider it Hollywood. I don't really know what the full context was. I think maybe it was previously college humor or whatever it was. But I can't tell you how many of my friends who are very disconnected from Hollywood or filmmaking or comedy or all of these things are watching Dropout TV here in Minnesota. Like it's becoming the mainstream in that regard. And I think when we reframe it to this is an opportunity and like do your best to like take a step back and take the emotion away from it, right? Because the reality is just because anybody can have the same idea as you does not mean that they're going to have the same execution as you, right? Just because Joe Schmo, who is like, wow, I can do a comedy set
Yeah.
and I can use ChatGPT to make it, doesn't mean that's going to be any good. Because the other thing to know about these tools is they are really, really good at doing the same things that have been made before. They're really, really bad at creating completely new and novel ideas, right? So Joe Schmo might use ChatGPT to come up with an entire comedy set, but that doesn't mean it's going to be any good. Maybe he's going to tweak it and make it so that it is really good, but it doesn't mean it's going to be really good. Whereas somebody who spent the last 10 years learning how to do comedy, learning how to write, learning how to structure jokes and pacing and all of these things, you might not want to use ChatGPT. I frankly don't use ChatGPT for a lot of my writing because I prefer to do it myself. I usually ask ChatGPT to check my work afterwards and tell me where to shorten things because I always write too gosh darn much, as you may have noticed by the amount that I'm talking right now, right? It has a habit of taking out my jokes, which is very rude. I have been working on this. Eventually, hopefully, it will stop deleting my jokes. It just like keeps all the exposition in there, and I'm like, guys, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. This is rude, right? But if
Good.
you are able to use ChatGPT to learn, oh, how do I create a successful business on YouTube? How do I go and start touring? How do I reach the right people so I'm able to do comedy in this regard, right? That's where the opportunities are. And just because Joe Schmo has some good ideas doesn't mean that he's going to execute on them as well as you are,
That's
right?
a because I love that's a great answer, and that's a very good point, folks out there. Because I just think that it's when you start doing self-publishing, not
Yeah.
every book is bad, and not every book is there's some great self-published books out there. I tell people better than some of the ones that get published. I've
Yeah.
seen published books that had errors in them still. Like who missed
Yeah.
this? Who missed this editing mistake? So I mean, I think I like the playing field. I think I like that it's even. I feel like when the pandemic hit and we were all on Zoom, it made everybody equal. It didn't matter if I was Jimmy Kimmel or me. Like we are all doing the same. We had the same glitches. We had the same. It was always all the same. It was like I feel like I'm tired of this kind of. And this happens in what happens in tech too. What happens, but it happens in creative space where there's always this hierarchy. Everybody's trying to position themselves, and you know this too. There's like, I'm here and you're here, like that kind of thing. It's like, no, why can't we all just be around here? And some folks are better than others. I mean, some people are more natural, and I think AI. I'm learning about it, going, okay, this is actually just a tool, and
Mhm.
it can be helpful, but it still comes down to me. I mean, I'm the human element. It's still
Yeah.
you won't know if it's you or not when it comes to creative stuff. It's like this is me, and maybe I can create a pitch deck really quick. Then
Mhm.
before it was just me. I use Opus Clip to get my clips. Like I could sit and clip. If I go, I like this section. I tell it what I want clipped, and it clips it for me. It does
Yeah.
save me time. And
Yeah.
it's still us talking. It's still my clips, you know?
And something I'm noticing among my artist friends too is that a lot of them seem to think that the only things that AI people are working on is like doing creative work, which couldn't be further from the truth. That's kind of with generative AI that ended up kind of happening, but it wasn't really the full intention. Like, and a lot of the ways that people are using AI most successfully is to help them with administrative tasks, right? Booking calendar meetings for you so that you don't have to go and text your friend over and 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 over again to try to actually get like this time that works on the calendar, right? Or making it so that it's easier to I don't know, write pitch emails that are like really technical and hard to write to different producers with your favorite screenplay, right? Or to just streamline your taxes, right? I watched a podcast the other day where some authors were saying, "Why can't AI do my taxes?" And it's like that's what TurboTax is. I don't know what, that's what a lot of these different systems are. And you can use them, and you can use all these other different tools. Like, I think a lot of people are, especially in the creative space, are like, oh, they're trying to get rid of everything that I do. And it's like, well, it might be able to do some of the things that you can do, but really the way that people should be using AI is to help fill in the gaps for the things that you don't know how to do very well. Right? So just think of anything that you don't know how to do particularly well, and then ask ChatGPT or ask Perplexity or ask Claude, whatever system you want to use, right? There's a lot of them. So if you don't like Sam Altman, you can avoid Sam Altman. That is a possibility, right? That you're going to be able to like learn how to do the things at least at a decent level, so that you're able to move forward and do things that you've never been able to do before, right?
Recently, for questions for a contract. I
Mhm.
was entering a space that I didn't know very much about. I just said, can you give me 7 questions that I should ask that should be included on a contract, blah, 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 the type of contract. And get great. It was great. And I was like, it saved me trying to call somebody to find somebody, I mean, all that stuff that you have to do to tell me. I was like, okay. And it saved me money. I mean, trying to get it, because, most lawyers, you can't talk
Yeah.
to them for free. So I was just like, I wanted, but it said 7 things that I really needed to know that I didn't
Yeah.
know about this type of contract. And so now when I went to the meeting, I was prepared.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I said, and what about, and I'm all, and what about blah, blah, blah? And they're like, oh, okay. And
Yeah, like you can put contracts in and be like, tell me, like, what are the most important things, or is there anything
yeah,
weird that's standing out to you about this? I
yes,
will even use, I don't do it that often, but I have used AI to help me put together extremely simple contracts because that's not something I'm particularly good at. But I just need something that says, hi, you will pay me this much. And these days, like at the end of the day, some of these legal paperwork's like, yes, you want a lawyer sometimes. And other times it's just like, I just want an agreement on paper that we like did this thing, right? And so being able to go into ChatGPT and be like, hey, I need um like a template for a contract that includes this type of stuff, this type of stuff, this type of stuff. And then it just makes it. And then what you can do, if you're feeling extra fancy, is you can copy and paste everything that's in that contract. And then you either use the same AI tool or a different one to check your work. So you can say, hey, is there any ways that you would improve this contract? And then it'll tell you how to improve its contract, even if it already made it, because it's not very clever. It's not a person. It doesn't like have self-awareness.
right.
It just wants to answer your question. The other thing to keep in mind is it does, these systems only want to please you, right? So they want to give you the answer that they think you are going to want to hear. So you do need to sometimes instruct it to be self-critical, and exactly in which way. Otherwise, it's just gonna, be like a really happy puppy dog or like an intern who's like, I did everything you said, but I don't understand anything that actually exists in the world, right?
I do. I love that. Yeah, I'm learning it to be very specific. I think and I think that's another thing about that. If you guys didn't catch this the whole show, being very specific in your own language
Yeah.
will help you more, and you'll get more out of it. Because another person told me that AI just really will always it'll keep going forever. It'll keep trying to improve, keep asking to improve. It won't stop. So at some
Yeah.
point, as a human, you have to stop and go, this is good enough, or this
Yep.
is right.
Yeah, I will ask ChatGPT to like review my newsletters these days, and it will review the newsletter and give me like 10 things to fix. I'm like, great. And then it'll give me 5 things to fix, and I'll be like, great. And then it'll give me 5 more things to fix. I'll be like, great. And it'll give me 5 more things to fix. And I'm like, bruh, chill out. We can be done now.
I love, oh my God, I love it. Um, but let's on just the flip side. Do you see any downsides to AI? We
Yeah.
talk, what
I
do you
mean,
see?
okay. I do want to address the 2 elephants in the room that I mentioned earlier, which are the copyright issues, and the environmental impacts.
Yes.
One of them I have a relatively good answer. The other one, not so good. So when it comes to copyright, as I said before, yes, these guys did absolutely steal from us. And they're continuing to do so. If you're using Facebook or Meta, okay, Zuckerberg, whatever. Like they are using all of the content on their site to better improve their system called Llama, right?
Oh yes.
Uh, Google, it's not confirmed. It appears that Google is going into your Google Drive. So if there's
I
anything
believe
too
it.
sensitive in
Girl,
there,
I'm sorry, girl. I believe it, girl. I think it is.
yep. So if there's anything too sensitive in there, maybe take it out, because that's not great. Both OpenAI, so ChatGPT and Google, scoured all of YouTube. Reddit has gotten a lot of money because they took a lot of content from Reddit.
I didn't
But
know.
and so the question is, what do we do about this? All right. The good news is there are several lawsuits that are in play right now, that are basically saying, hey, AI companies, you stole data. So the one that comes to mind to me most right now is the New York Times. The New York Times is like, yeah, you guys stole. This is ridiculous, right? So what's going to happen is the courts are going to decide. All right. And there will eventually be some sort of a process, hopefully, where people are going to be compensated. And that's where we're at, right? So as an individual, if that's too much for you, I totally get it. I totally respect that. You don't have to use AI tools. Me coming on here is not telling you that you have to use AI tools. You can use them if you want to. But at the same time, there's not much that we can do about that. But the pros of using these systems, which are doing things like helping diagnose patients with 90% accuracy compared to doctors who have 74% accuracy, and creating personalized medicine so that, women are able to get better care,
Yeah.
rather than just assuming that every single person is, a straight white man. Okay. Like what we're seeing in a lot of these different pros that are coming out of the AI space are just absolutely incredible stuff. All right. We've accelerated a lot of the research that has been needed when it comes to medications, pharmaceuticals, or disease studies by, in some cases, decades to 100 years worth of research has now been conducted in a few short months. It
Okay.
like the pros out of this are really, really, really incredible. And like, yes, it sucks that that data theft was involved.
Yeah.
But the question is, are we going to hold it against them forever, or are we going to let the courts deal with it? Right? Is it really in your best interest to avoid this forever? It might be, might not be, right? That's a decision that's up to you. Now, the other elephant in the room is climate, and how much energy these systems are using.
Yes.
So, yes, that is bad news. It is bad, but I don't have a lot of easy things for that, but I do have a few reassurances. First, um, individuals prompting a chatbot doesn't do that much when it comes to energy usage, right? If you as an individual, the amount of impact that you are having is not that big of a deal. I don't have the numbers for that, but I know that's the case.
Okay.
Training the models, so updating these new systems to make them smarter or better, does have a big effect. All right. So if you're worried about a very single prompt, it's probably going to be okay. All right. But usage for images is going to be more, usage for videos is going to be more. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay.
However, and here's a major caveat, we are now building these systems far better than we used to, and they are becoming more energy efficient. What do I mean by this? You may have seen some headlines about a Chinese LLM called DeepSeek.
Yeah.
DeepSeek was able to build a very similar model to ChatGPT for a fraction of the amount of compute, which means a fraction of the amount of energy used. So now all of these systems are trying to figure out how can we copy DeepSeek and build our systems so that they are more sustainable and cheaper and more effective. Okay. So although the numbers are going way up right now, they will start to come down. Yes, as more people use it, the numbers are still going to go up, but this is something that is going up and down. It's not something that's going exponentially up. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is that um, so data centers are a lot of the biggest like emitters, and a lot of it has to do with needing to cool down all of these computer systems, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I am currently in one of my projects, I am doing research on how these companies are trying to cool these centers. Many places are switching from air cooling, so HVAC, like air conditioned cooling for these machines, to
Yeah.
liquid cooling. So using water in usually closed loops or maybe near an ocean or in Minnesota, maybe near Lake Superior, right? And using more natural ways to get to pull out more heat from these computers while using less energy. So there is a lot of good news in that space. It's just going to take a little bit more time to get there. So yes, it is a problem right now. It is getting worse, but there are a lot of signs that's getting better. In addition, a lot of the tech community is very, they want to save the climate. That's something that some of these oligarchs are very into. And so, in a more controversial thing that to keep in mind about, which I don't think people are talking about enough, and it is controversial, is a lot of these companies are finding ways to build more energy centers. They're trying to use more clean energy. One of the clean energies that's being pushed the most these days is nuclear. I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with nuclear, but if you actually look at the impacts that nuclear has, especially more modern day systems have, compared to a lot of these other, energy developers, it is so much better for the environment and it's so much safer than people realize. So, Cleo Abrams is a creator I really like to follow. She had a phenomenal video on this topic. I highly advise that you watch it. It really shifted my perspective. Like, yes, am I a bit nervous about nuclear? Of course, but I was very much more assured after watching it. And I think it's definitely worth checking out because a lot of things that I thought I knew about nuclear were not true. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. That's. Thanks for addressing those two things because those are two things we always talk about. People talk about that
Yeah.
stuff, and the carbon footprint is something that people may half people laugh at, the other half are like, "It's serious. It's this
Yeah.
serious." And I agree that it's serious. I just think it's. But I just feel like when you start something, when we had these giant TVs, they were huge, console TVs. Like then we got
Yeah, yeah.
microwaves, pretty huge. And so like things as they move along, hopefully things get better, right? They get more
Yeah.
efficient and more user and more friendly to the environment and user friendly. So I always feel like that's how it starts out, and then it kind of
Yeah. And
there's
people forget that like in order to get the technology that we had to have today, like things were really messy along the way,
yeah,
right? So like it used to be that to use electricity in your home, everyone would have like a single light bulb that was basically where chandeliers go. And then if you wanted to use any other machine in your home, you would get like a really big extension cord and plug it into the light bulb socket so that you could run a washing machine.
right,
Like, and that was the only source of electricity in your home.
right,
So, and it was very, and that was aggressively not safe, right? Like the house would go on fire because people were trying to plug everything into their chandelier that was way up on the ceiling that they couldn't reach. And it was this whole thing, right? So, like, and so things are often messy at the beginning of things, but tend to get better over time. And it is something that the industry is taking very seriously and talks about often. Um, but it is something that I think creative people in particular don't recognize that people in tech, this is something they are absolutely really focused on and focused on finding solutions, and that there have been proven solutions that will make things better. It just takes time to implement them all.
Yeah. So, folks, I mean, guys, I can be this hour by so fast. Um,
I
you have to,
know.
you have to come back on. And but the thing is, if anything major happens in this space, you got to come back on that for that too. I mean, get the rulings or anything, you got to
Just
come
have
back.
me on for like a monthly segment, a quarterly segment. Like
You
Carolyn's
might,
back.
you might do that. Might have to do that. You might have to do that, girl. I'm down for that almost because there's always something going on. I mean, it's now. It's not the
Yeah.
future. It's now. We
And I
are.
think like the biggest thing is again the job stuff, right? Like the combination of AI and social media is making it so that, because I know you have a lot of people in Hollywood and New York and whatever who are in the Hollywood space, right? In the industry, right? There is so much more opportunity than what you're hearing. And if your social media feeds right now only talk about AI in a really negative context, I really urge you to look for more types of content. So if you want, you can subscribe to my stuff. So it's called Swift Start Go.
Oh, I'll put in the
Look at
description.
how
All about
smoothly I
that.
plugged that.
I love that.
Hey!
That's Swift. I love that. Uh, your former name. Go ahead and tell me where they can find your Substack and all that.
Yeah, so you can look up my Substack. I think actually I haven't checked to make sure that I'm like Google friendly, but apparently I'm AI friendly as long as you make sure to search the internet. But if you go on Substack and either search my full name, Carolyn Swift Holden, or Swift Start Go, I'm pretty positive you can find me. I also have a website which is just carolynswiftholden.com. Pretty simple. I also post a lot on LinkedIn, so if that's your thing, you can find me if you look up Carolyn Holden, Carolyn Swift Holden. I will say if you want to Google me and you're trying to find me, you do have to use my middle name. I'm sorry. I know it's annoying. But if you just do Carolyn Holden, you're just going to get a lot of photos of Yasmin Bleeth in Baywatch. So if you want me and not a lovely lady in a swimsuit, you need to look up Carolyn Swift Holden. Okay? You can't just do Carolyn Holden or you're screwed. You're not going to get me. Or maybe it's a gift to get Yasmin Bleeth instead of me. Perhaps that is better.
She was beautiful back in the day. I haven't seen her recently, but she was beautiful back in the day. So
She was beautiful back in the day. Man, I wish I had that body. That'd be so great.
I wish I had that body too. That's another story.
You know,
Folks,
what I would do if my job was just slow motion running on a beach. What I would do.
I actually know Pamela Anderson. Like actually,
You do?
I've met her several times over the
Oh
years.
my God, tell her that Carolyn Holden says hi.
I know I love her. She's actually one of the nicest people. I love her. Speaking of thank you for being on the show. Of course, she'll be back, folks. She'll be back. She'll totally be back. And this is a lot of help, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help. We're trying to share ideas and make them more of in a just not so scary form. Just like don't be scared. It's like we're gonna hold hands, we're gonna go through this together. It's going to be okay.
It's just software. It's just software. It's gonna change the world, but it's just software, guys.
She just said, I'm like, we'll end it here. A lot of help's on Facebook, of course. James Engineer everywhere else. And we'll see you next time.